Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is standing at a grave, placing flowers on it, saying words they know the person underneath can't hear. You've probably done this too. It feels like such a human thing to do. But here's what almost nobody realizes. This impulse, the flowers, the ritual, the refusal to just walk away, it's older than religion, older than language, maybe older than our species itself. In 1960, archaeologists digging in Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq found a Neanderthal skeleton buried roughly 60,000 years ago. Soil samples around the body showed pollen clusters from wildflowers, yarrow, cornflower, hollyhock. The excavator, Ralph Selecki, proposed something radical for the time. Neanderthals were burying their dead with flowers. Critics pushed back for decades, arguing the pollen could have blown in naturally. But newer excavations at the same site and a second Neanderthal grave nearby found the same pattern. Bodies placed deliberately, in fetal positions, with objects nearby that served no survival purpose. Whatever it wasn't an accident. So where does this actually start? At Qafzeh Cave in Israel, archaeologists found early Homo sapiens remains dating back roughly 100,000 years. One skeleton, a child, was buried with deer antlers placed against its chest. Deer antlers don't end up on a chest by accident. Someone put them there. That means the instinct to mark death with meaning wasn't invented later by some clever priest in a growing civilization. It was already running through us, quietly, tens of thousands of years before anyone built a temple. Here's the part that gets stranger. This behavior doesn't stop at humans. Primatologist Jane Goodall documented chimpanzees sitting beside dead troop members for hours, grooming the body, refusing to leave. Elephants have been filmed returning to the bones of dead relatives years later, touching the skulls with their trunks in what researchers describe as unmistakably deliberate behavior. If chimps and elephants show something resembling grief, then whatever happens in the human brain during mourning isn't a cultural invention. It's wired in far deeper than any single society. Now, here's where it gets interesting. For most of the 20th century, the common belief was that mourning behavior was uniquely human, something taught, passed down through culture and religion. But that's not quite true either. If grief-like behavior shows up in chimps and elephants, animals with no religion, no funerals, no priests, then the instinct to mark death didn't come from a belief system at all. It came first. It's older than any of the stories we built to explain it. By 34,000 years ago, at a site called Sungir in Russia, this behavior had become extraordinarily elaborate. 2 children were buried head-to-head, covered in over 10,000 ivory beads, each one estimated to take 45 minutes to carve by hand. That's more than 7,000 hours of labor sewn into 2 children's burial clothes. In a world where every single day was a fight for food and warmth, an entire community dedicated thousands of hours to dressing the dead. That's not a footnote in prehistory. That's a priority. And that priority did something else, something rarely connected to burial at all. Funerals required people to gather. Different families, sometimes different bands who barely interacted, would travel to be present for a death. Anthropologists studying Sungir now argue these gatherings functioned as early social glue, forcing separate groups to cooperate, trade, and recognize each other as part of something larger. Long before permanent settlements, long before farming, long before anyone called themselves a tribe with a shared god. Which brings us to the part almost nobody expects. We tend to imagine that ritual and religion arrived together, that humans invented burial because they already believed in gods, an afterlife, some cosmic reason death mattered. That's the story most of us grew up with. But the evidence points the other way. Ritual came first. Humans were burying their dead, marking graves, gathering for funerals, tens of thousands of years before any organized belief system existed to explain why. The gods, the afterlife, the sacred stories, all of it came later, built to make sense of a behavior that was already there. We didn't bury our dead because we believed. We believed because we were already burying our dead, and we needed a reason big enough to match how much it mattered to us. Think about what that means. Every religion, every funeral rite, every idea about an afterlife might be humanity's attempt to explain an instinct it already had, rather than the source of that instinct. The behavior came first. The meaning came second. By 3200 BCE, you get Newgrange in Ireland, a massive stone tomb aligned so precisely that on the winter solstice, a single beam of sunlight travels down a 19-meter passage and illuminates the burial chamber for exactly 17 minutes. Whoever engineered that understood astronomy well enough to align tons of stone to the degree purely to mark the resting place of the dead. By this point, burial wasn't just ritual. It was architecture, science, and memory, fused into one structure meant to outlast everyone who built it. So let's put the whole timeline together. 100,000 years ago, a child was buried with deer antlers on its chest. 60,000 years ago, Neanderthals were laying flowers on their dead. 34,000 years ago, communities spent thousands of hours dressing children in beads for their final rest. And 5,000 years ago, humans were aligning entire stone monuments to sunlight just to honor the dead properly. Every single stage happened before organized religion as we understand it, before writing, before most of what we call civilization. Which means the next time you stand at a funeral or place flowers somewhere you know won't be seen, you're not performing a modern custom passed down through religion or tradition. You're doing something your species, and possibly the species before you, has been doing for over 100,000 years. Long before we had gods to explain death, we already refused to let it be meaningless. We just needed the flowers first, and the reasons came later. If you want to look deeper into any of this, the research is linked below.